Down to go. Back to Jeff.
Down here.
No, I don't.
Oh, not yet. That was the guy that did mine. What do you?
There's the issue.
Came back and tried to- Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they took care of it. Oh, good. Yeah, bring that one that they get with their, up into the attic. That's really fine.
So you're totally satisfied with it?
Huh?
You're totally satisfied?
Yeah. They'll give you the full one.
I saw them.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. We'll check them out later. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I want it. Everybody. Yes, good. Great.
Good evening, everyone. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Call the roll. Suzanne Payson. Here. Brent Moore. Here. Gary Leonard.
Here.
Mike Sweeney.
Here.
David Shaboo.
Here.
Here. And we'll start with the approval of our minutes from August 29th. I apologize, it's August 7th. Correct, the 7th or the.
Yeah.
Correct, page 7.
Yeah.
Just that, okay, so it is correct in the minutes, not in ours.
Right.
I'll just put that. All right. Anybody have any, corrections, updates, otherwise I'll take motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Also.
Suzanne Cason. Aye. Brent Moore.
Aye.
Gary Leonard.
Aye.
Mike Sweeney.
Aye.
David Shaboo.
Aye.
Right, start with our public hearing. This is one of the first public hearings since we have changed the rules. I'm just gonna quickly review for everyone what we're here to discuss and what we'll take comments on as well. And so we are here to discuss the crane landing proposal. We are looking primarily at the development plan. It's the job of this group to review the development plan in detail. And then approve or make any other recommendations or disapprove. So that's that piece. We will look through the agreement. We make a recommendation to council on the development agreement. The development agreement takes in the development plan as part of the agreement itself, so it'll be incorporated into that. And in that case, we recommend to council. The third item really is a recommendation about the zoning itself, the application of this. That too, so it'd be the application for PUD for the parcel as well. That too is a recommendation. So for our public hearing, the way that we'll run it is we will ask Mr. Summers to kind of give us a quick walkthrough of the proposal of where we're at tonight, the development plan. At that point, we will take, I think we have 4 folks who have requested time, so we'll have up to 5 minutes. And they are asked to direct their comments to this group. It's not interactive experience. It really is allowing you to share your thoughts about development. After that, we will close the public portion and we will have the commission talk amongst ourselves as well as ask any questions of Mr. Summers or the administration or others. So with that, Greg, floor is yours.
Thank you. Do I need to introduce myself again or?
Doesn't
Okay, everybody knows who I am. Just a clarification point, so our last meeting before I was before the board, did you guys make a recommendation on the development plan and now we're focusing on these
No,
next?
that was the site plan.
Okay,
The preliminary site plan
okay,
was what was approved at that point. And so now we're looking at the full development plan.
okay,
And that piece will come through. That's our 1242.025 development plan review.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So since last meeting, we've submitted extensive documentation as required via the ordinance, design guidelines, a draft development agreement, restrictive covenants and restrictions, also a maintenance checklist. We submitted that to Mr. Lyons for thorough review, and he responded with various comments, most of which we were in agreement with. And if it's all right, I could run down his memorandum and just make the comments that we
Sure.
went back and forth with the city. The first one, we asked for some clarification on the CRA tax abatement language. We had originally incorporated what is already in your current ordinances now, as it would qualify it for a new residential development. So that's something that I spoke with Mr. Lyons and the mayor about, just for
So let me
clarification.
pause you for those, especially up here who are following along. That would be section 8, page 5 of the development. Sorry, yeah.
So we just wanted some clarification as it applies. It's an important part of the project, you know. I continue to stress that we're excited to redevelop that corner. We're gonna invest, close to a $9 million investment there. You know, the CRA is the community reinvestment area. It's the mechanism there is to spur investment and development communities. The tool that's more important than ever right now too, because of where costs are, the mortgage payments are through the roof. You know, it really helps people that want to move in the community and buy a new house, make it affordable. It's an important development tool that we utilize in a lot of cities. So we just wanted to clarify that how the ordinance read now and how it, that it would apply to if this is a new residential community. So that was the first point that we discussed with Jim. And then moving down the list here, he made some additional comments on the development agreement. The next one was regarding the assignment of the agreement. That's non-assignable unless the consent of the agreement is approved by the city, which we're more than fine with. It's going to be us and we have no intention to assign it. And then moving on to the declaration of covenants, conditions and maintenance checklist.
So wait, let me go back. That's on page 9.
Yeah. Yes, So I'm reading off Jim's memorandum.
Of the city, that's fine, but not everybody has,
Sorry.
has that.
Okay, sorry.
That's, I just wanted to make sure I reference those are going through there, so that's actually of the version that we have at 39. B, I think, assignment shows it's dropped in our version, so you're saying that it's, that you agree with.
Yeah, I can make the agreement non-assignable, we're fine, or, again, I can read Jim's full comment, but. You know, if it were to be, if it were to be assigned, the city would have to approve it, which we have no problem with at all. And then moving down under the declaration of covenants and restrictions. Jim had made some comments regarding how we would need to set up the plat. It was under section 2.1, the lots is defined as follows, and then goes in, they shall be fee simple residential, like that paragraph. Like,
So you got Jim.
Oh, Jim.
So this is actually in regards to, sorry, we switched documents here.
Yeah.
This is the declaration of covenants, conditions, and maintenance.
I apologize, I'm just working down his list, so I don't mean to make you guys
Okay.
flip through all the documents.
So it goes to the 30, whatever page version, and it comes back to, 922, so that's page 24, design guideline. Right, is that where you're at?
Yes, and then there was one comment that he made about how we're defining the lots. He mentions that the lot shall
Yeah.
be simple residential. For sale, for construction and occupation of an attached residential. Like dwelling, that paragraph, and then he makes some comments about. Formalities on how we need to set up the plat to essentially match the development plan, which, we have no problem with, and we're working on a draft plat now to submit. For review. It's early in the process, but we figure we're just gonna,
Well, it's not that early, it should be in the development plan that you're asking us to approve, but, okay. This should be pretty good. Okay,
moving on, The design guidelines, Jim he made the comment that the city should also. Be able to approve any such changes to that, which we have no problem with at all. That was 922.
yeah,
So there's no problem there, and then under 925 party walls. Jim was looking for some clarification on how the shared maintenance would work, and I provided him some clarification, because attached units like this are very common, they're built everywhere. But I submitted a paragraph in response to the party walls, and if he mentioned that there could be problems in the future because of, attached units are connected, a lot of owners will have to coordinate all this, and we have additional language that we had our attorney put together, and it reads as the shared property lines run between double layers of 1-inch fire rated drywall. Each homeowner would be responsible for all materials up to that point on either side of their respective unit. And units would only be responsible for the materials on the shared side, but also they're responsible for the exterior finishes on the opposite side of their unit. So we plan on incorporating that, just so it's well defined on responsibilities.
so you're adding additional language to what was submitted.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was in response to Jim's comment about 925 party walls. And then moving down the list, I'm on 13Q, that's no assignment, that's the same language as the assignment. Like I said, we're in agreement with the assignment language. In terms of Jim's comments, that's, I believe, on his memorandum, those were the only comments that we had, so he reviewed the drafts. I know he submitted to you guys a side-by-side comparison of the development agreement, but there wasn't a lot beyond what I just brought up that, you know, we didn't agree or we felt needed change. So,
Anything else? There are any other comments to do that?
no, not at this point. I mean, I submitted, the landscape plan, the landscape renderings, architectural renderings, at this point, no, I guess I would leave it to questions from you guys and any other information from me.
Great, well, thank you. We'll take public comment and then we may well call you back depending on what questions folks have.
Thank you.
Greg.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'm gonna take these in the order with which they were submitted. Mr. Cleveland? So a reminder, you have 5 minutes. As measured by Apple. So I will go ahead and hit start after you give your name and your address. I do see that you have 2 items here. We only have 1 that's up for public hearing.
Okay,
I'd be happy at the end of the meeting if you wanted to take a few more minutes and talk about the first.
thank you, I appreciate it.
So go ahead and
Thanks.
introduce yourself and
Okay.
then I'll get started.
Thanks to the group for allocating time for me. I think this is kind of a big deal for everybody.
Wait, let me
to
slow you
say.
down.
Say what?
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bill
Start with the name and
Cleveland, 7607 is the Salida Road.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so again, thanks for giving me the time to speak. At this point, I'll just address the Crane Landing development. Okay, and I only have 2 comments. One is, and this has to do with the city in general, the administration, city council. It has to do with rules and laws and guidelines uniformly applied. In the 34 years that I've lived here, I've been cited 3 times. Once for unsightly piles of bridge deck in my yard that I was using for erosion control. Another time because my garbage cans weren't in within a day or 2. And the 3rd time was on my house on Pinehurst because the grass wasn't cut. And those were all very promptly delivered, executed, whatever. To that end, the mayor and others had mentioned the unsightly stuff at Crane's Landing, current site, the boats. And this has been going on for well over a year. It's been beat up hugely about how unsightly all those abandoned boats and stuff are, and yet they're still there. And I have to wonder, is there something special going on I don't know about, why some people are exempt from enforcing these rules and regulations while others are held to task? Secondly, at the last, I think it was the last meeting, it was brought up that we're gonna have the nice front-looking part of the condos facing the street. So it's a little less ugly than otherwise as far as high density goes. And Mr. Summers has said, we've given that a lot of thought and we can't figure out how to do it. I find that a stunning statement, since the country and even Ohio is full of condo developments. And I'm sure the Summers Group has managed and orchestrated a number of them. And many of them have made the effort to make the street side look much more appealing, parking in the rear and so on. And I have to wonder again, and even Mr. Moore had commented about what happened to the idea that the front appearance part of the building is gonna face the street, which again led to Mr. Summers' comment about, gee, we can't figure out how to do that. And I'm wondering, is that a persuasive argument?
So what would you like to see? What would you like to see?
I would like to see the apparent front of the building, which may not be where people come in and out all the time, they may park, but I'd like to see the attractive front of the building facing Salida Road, facing Lakeshore Boulevard, and so on. And as a construction engineer manager with some experience, I just am puzzled by the comment that we can't figure out how to do that. And I would hope that planning and zoning is making an attempt to stick to what the public has asked for and not quickly caving in to what's easy for the developer. That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Miller. And again, your name and the address first.
Hi, I'm Shelley Miller. I live at 7900 Lake Shore. Just 2 blocks away from the proposed development. I have several questions. Has an environmental impact study been completed to determine the impacts on the noise, the light pollution, the additional parking of all of these people, the additional traffic of all of these people right across the street from our park? Has an environmental impact
This is
study
the
been
time for your
completed?
statement.
That is something that should be done before anybody considers approving anything. About the appearance of the proposed condos, is it going to fit with the rest of the neighborhood? Is it going to demolish all of the existing green space? What's the plan for the wildlife that hangs out on that corner, mostly geese? What are you gonna do about those? Where are they gonna go? I'd like to know what, if any, the former Judge Crane's involvement in Crane's Landing is, as she's been lost her law license in 1990, is a tax dodge, has allowed multiple of her owned establishments, including an apartment complex in Warren, where she evicted all of her tenants with no notice after having a $60,000 tax lien placed against her. And now running down Riders Inn, a historical site that she's now washing her hands of and walking away after letting it fall into disrepair and having the second most findings from the health department in Lake County. So I have many concerns about the entirety of this project. And because my house is literally 2 blocks away, and this is the nicest park we have in town, it's not even ours. I'm very concerned about the impact that would have on our ability to use that park. And that's my time.
Thank you. Mr. Burris? Did I say that correctly? I'm sorry.
Yes. My name is Earl Curtis. I am at 7523 Salida Road. And I want to begin with agreeing with Bill Cleveland when it comes to the preference of having the front or frontal sides facing the street for appearance purposes. I also want to reiterate that I feel got missed in these renderings was the whole purpose of the PUD. And if I read this, I don't see how the renderings that were provided even come close. It says the purpose. The purpose of the Planned Unit Development Overlay District, PUD, and associated regulations is to provide a higher quality development of a site that would otherwise be permitted without consideration of alternate uses, densities, and dwelling types, as well as in the design and the placement of buildings in order to achieve the following objectives: to encourage creative approaches to the use of the land and related physical facilities that result in better urban design, higher quality construction, and the provisions of aesthetic amenities. This is a row of backsides facing our street, basically shaming our city. That's what we get in a flat row. Next, foster a variety of housing types and styles of housing. Very clearly, monotony shall be avoided. This rendering is pure monotony. It is one long row. There is not even a separation in buildings. There's not a separation in architectural detail. There's not a separation in window design. There's not a separation of anything. It's pure monotony at the ultimate. Variation of detail, form, and siding shall be used to provide visual interest. This is our corner lot on our main street across from a beautiful park next to our neighbors that we really would like to see turn out to be nice. I don't want the world to come here, my family to come here and see the backside of the earth at our corner lot. And that's what I think that we get right now. So I'll talk a little bit more since I got 5 minutes. You know, not have adverse impacts to the area and community. That means complement the area, complement the design features of the library, complement the design features of our neighborhood. Monotony shall be avoided. Tedious reputation is called monotony, tedious reputation. The same thing over and over and over and over. That's monotony. Finally, it states right here, harmonious design of buildings. Harmonious means free from disagreement or dissent. And there's a lot of people here because we see a lot of dissent. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Flanagan. Right here, oh, there you are.
Okay, Susan Lenahan, 7359 Salida. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk to you all on this new procedure. It's very helpful. A couple of things that I had have already been addressed, either by people speaking or people sending an email in. Does that get looked at when you all discuss things, or?
I have not seen emails, so.
Well, right, we can't email you because we don't, but we said if we send things to council members or the mayor.
You just send it to Al.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just asking
Feel free to.
if it's,
Okay.
okay, well, I just know some other ones have been sent in, so if they were gonna be read when you guys visit, I wouldn't repeat, that's all. But I'll just start with what I had. For me, I wanted to address the issue of tax abatement. It was a hot topic during this entire process. I don't think there was anybody that was in support of giving a tax abatement. In fact, there was a lot of strong verbal comments about that. The developer was given great incentive already by the change in the density. They were already sort of given a pretty big carrot on that. They can sell more units now. They can make more money. I don't know why we shouldn't share in some of that profitability by having tax revenue. The one thing I've heard in a lot of the council meetings is we can't afford anything. We can't, you know, every time anything comes up, we can't afford it. We have no money. So why on earth would we give 15 years at 100% to anybody? I appreciate what Mr. Lyons wrote. I did read his memo. And I think that the language that he suggested, which I'm assuming you all have seen, is more appropriate. You know, they would get consideration based on whatever's on the books at the time. There's no guarantee. It should be something that's reviewed by council and the city to decide if they want to give away that money. It shouldn't really be an automatic. I think that would be really unfair. The owner occupied unit issue, that's been addressed. I think what I know from some other comments I've seen from folks, it's unclear to us where that stands. What's the front, what's the rear? So that's the only thing that I would add. I don't understand which is which. But I do know that the rear allows for basically the rear can have anything dealing with like porches, appendages, and addition. That could include decks, patios, fencing, small portable kiddie pools, spas and hot tubs, and television antennas and fencing. I don't think that's the vision as everybody's discussed that we're looking for on that corner. I had assignment, but Mr. Summers already agreed to that. There was also some language about identifying the builder. I think the financial stability, quality of work, and experience in any potential builder is an extremely important part of the process, and it's crucial that that information be shared with the city. The owner occupied units and the rental issue, that was another very hot topic. And the language seems vague. I thought that the whole plan was these would be owner occupied only. I have seen some language in there that makes it appear that they can make a decision to rent these. And that was something I thought council discussion with the citizens was very clear. So That's all I have. I'll defer if anybody else has signed up and has time.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll ask if have to say it. All right, those are the only speakers that I had. Thank you all for your comments. So I have that it is 6:28. We will close the public portion of this discussion. We will open it to the commission. So again, our job here really is to start with the development plan. So we'll start with that as opposed to the agreement itself. And if we look at 1242.025 as our requirements for development plans in it is incorporated by reference in the PUD. And you may need to share on that. Sorry, I just took 13 minutes time for my homework. I don't. You know, so the final development plan, I think what we're looking at, right? Preliminary development plan. I guess. Sorry, that was my timer. Thought I turned it off. Yeah, so the agreement is submitted with the plan. All right, so let's take a look at what is in the development plan. So the preliminary plan, I think we do in fact have, but I do think as we look at moving from the preliminary to the final, a reminder that preliminary plan approval does not assure approval of the final plan. And I think there may be some asks that we have when they want to have prior to that piece. So let's go ahead and just dive in. Does anybody want to dive in with any specific questions?
Yeah. Mr. Summers, you have a minimum 1,200 square foot on your, agreement here.
Yes.
And how many proposed units are you gonna have at 1,200? Because I say there's multiple differences. There's like one unit has 3, one has 5.
We use the 1,200 as the minimum, but they're gonna be substantially bigger than that. We just needed to put a minimum number in the development, right? That wouldn't be,
So we could change it to 1,600. That one.
I can give you the exact square footages.
I appreciate that.
No problem. That was more of a general parameter that was added early on,
Well-
but we have the square footages for all the unit types.
Yeah, because my thing is, I mean, I keep hearing the word high end, and I called Lakeway Woods, Summer Tree. They all have townhouses, well, over on Plains, and they average between 1,100 and 12. So to me, either minimum 1,200 is not high end.
No, then, and I wanna say on the record too, our average sale price there is gonna be around 285,000. The median home value in Mentor on the Lake as a whole is like 184 and change. I submitted, all this comes from the MLS data. Like 184 citywide. We're gonna average over 100,000 above the median home value in citywide with these units. And I'll say it on the record that 285 is gonna be the minimum sale price there. And do you guys want me to address any of the comments or you wanna? Okay. Okay.
So I noticed here on your porches, appendages and additions, you have no porches or whatever in the front. But then it says you're allowed.
So which document are you?
Kind of under the Springs Landing.
Design
guidelines.
guidelines. All right, let's take these kind of one document. Design guidelines, but
That's maybe no further to go. I'm just getting confused because you have, patio decks may be screened with a 6 foot privacy fence on either side, but if you go through your HOA, it says it's not permitted. So I'm just confused which is it. Or they're permit them or not permit them.
Yeah, I'll make an overall comment here. I found the design guidelines to be also confusing and vague. If you feel a little bit like a boilerplate, there were some specifics that I had, spas and hot tubs. Being allowed, that you can have a privacy fence. I certainly would want to make sure that any and all of your design guidelines still fit within the laws of the city about where you can and cannot have fences. I have a real problem with having a spot or hot tub on the deck that's sitting on the side of Lake Boulevard. And then, yeah, you're not gonna have space if I then look at the design, if I look at this piece that allows you to have enough open space to be able to kind of put that in, so.
I mean,
to me,
if
that
bar
is
or hot tubs,
confusing.
if that's a concern, I mean, I wouldn't have an issue not permitting them. We depended on Jim's legal review to confirm what you just mentioned about it being in harmony with the city ordinances. So some of it is templated and, you know, then we have to amend it with what is permitted in the city. So
Right,
we depend on his review, but if you wanna not allow that, I kind of agree with you, because
I'd like to not allow it.
I really think it's in the HOA that says it's not permitted. That's why. I'm
So I think,
confused
yeah, I
on
think
this.
one of the things we need to make sure of is that that the design guidelines are aligned with all of the materials that you put forward. Well, we're gonna, if we ask to have that removed, yeah. So that was definitely one of the pieces I had. I think the other piece that I had was, you know, for the final development plan, we're looking for architectural information, we're looking for more design information. We're certainly seeing kind of the bare minimum, and I would. In my personal view, I think some of the earlier drawings we had were in fact. It's interesting to hear the 285, because these are a little institutional for 285 minimum. I was a little bit surprised on that, so. We don't really have any of the architectural or design renderings. It's actually part of our 12.2.025. We're supposed to have preliminary floor plans and architectural sketches of the buildings and other structures, so. If this is it, and this is our final, then that provides us with a different perspective. I felt like some of these that we got, this was more supposed to be about the landscape plan than the architectural rendering.
because the landscape rendering is showing, that rendering that the gentleman held up, that's not showing the exact units with, you know, colors and shutters and building
Yeah.
materials. If you look at the color copy of that, I mean, that's just,
Interesting, right?
those are not, you know, there's gonna be difference in colors and building materials, and they're not all gonna be exactly the same. And when
These pictures are not what you're going to do.
That was the landscape plan.
no, on the landscape plan, if you look at those units. I mean, the way that landscape architect drew those in there, they're not the actual building sitting there as if you were looking at them when they were done with.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is we approved the preliminary site plan, which is what's here. I was really hoping 4 months later to be able to look at that something can progress as far as the views, which is really, you know, we'll take a look at the agreement itself, of course, and we recommend that through, but I think it's pretty critical that this be here, and it feels like there's just some things missing. So we do have the property location map. I think that's good. We don't, I'm not sure, we have the property lines. easements rights away, topography lines at 2 feet intervals. I'm not sure we have that, so it just feels like it's a little light, things are a little light here. Certainly the preliminary site plan, that was a great conversation, but I do think there's some other things that we.
I guess I just wanna work with you, I wanna work with you guys to determine. Every step we go further here, we do a lot more work. And. I just wanna get a better understanding tonight in front of the board,
Okay.
how we get there. Cause we're not trying to piecemeal this, it's a lot of information, the review with Jim took a long time. There's a lot of information in the CCRs, the development agreement, all that. And with the renderings and the plans, I mean, you know, I just wanna get a better idea of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Cause it's a lot of work, there's a fine line between preliminary and final, and doing all the architecture and all that work. Before we know, you know, if we're gonna get it approved, or, you know, moving to the next
Absolutely, and I
step,
think
so.
that's why we move forward with the site plan though, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to be able to go to architectural and building.
Mhm.
So that would have, for me, would have been the next step, and I think, you know, that we have pointed out that. If you look at our ordinances, there's really just 2 that really apply here, it's the 1242 and the 1255. You know, they say the development agreement, in order to be approved, has to have architectural details. So that the administration, planning and zoning, and the council will kind of know what the final product looks like. And that's, I think we're missing that piece. And so, you know, kind of that rendering that says, and it's interesting because when we started this process, we have some early copies that were probably a little more, you know, down the road on what it could look like. And I think that really excited all of us. And so we'll look forward definitely to seeing those architectural details. So, you know, and again, I think we have, you know, we do have in the governing, which some of our my fellow residents talked about, there are some asks about things like different, you know, making it different, not all the same, things like that, different surfaces. I won't be able to quote it, but I'll write something down again, but that is all in that 1255. And so that idea that we certainly would want to be able to have that variety. And it sounds like the direction you're going too. I mean, if we're gonna look at 285 in this area, we're gonna wanna have, and wanna be looking a little bit more polished. No. So I do think that that's something that I am looking for. Any other, and we can kind of get into specifics as well, any other broad brush pieces that folks, other folks are looking for before
I'm just like, I'd like to see where the storm sewer is gonna be and where they're going and the direction of the water flows from the building, if that's possible. Only thing I see is just a retention pond.
Mhm.
Does it show how the water is getting into it? Or where the water is gonna be going, is it going on the neighbors' properties, is it going to the streets? That way,
Yeah. We definitely haven't done full engineered drawings yet,
okay,
so that's why.
we were kind of under the impression that that's what we were getting with the site plan. So that's where some of the meetings is coming from, I think.
No, and I appreciate the clarification, it's just, it's us trying to get clarity, and I've talked to the mayor about this before. It's the first time through this process too with the PUD. And, you know, to get to those level of drawings, I mean, there's. Full engineered drawings I agree with you, are different than a preliminary site plan. And on the renderings, and what you guys have seen so far, I mean, are you looking for? You know, exact selections and colors, you know, exactly what shingles we're gonna use as we are doing selections to build it tomorrow, I mean,
I think we're looking for something that's a little bit more than the gray, you know, pad placement.
This is one that we've seen a long time ago. This is one of the first ones you brought us.
And that, something like that was even more appealing. So, you know, whether you say, gosh, we're really gonna do gray, charcoal gray, or gray. Probably, you know, that's outside of our, you don't exactly have a historic district that you're trying to plan with them, but I do think, you know, again, it's that looking for the fact that there has been thought and that you're kind of, you know, really looking to do what you can with, you know, within the price that you're targeting. 285, that probably I would say 285, yeah. The nice range.
Yeah, well, we want them to look nice too.
Yeah.
But we also want to work within the confines of a realistic price point too, you know, like I said, that's on the record that we're gonna be at 285, and I said, we're gonna be at 100,000 over the average. Overall average home price citywide. With these units.
So I don't think we're really looking so much at color, but it would be materials or level of materials.
Material samples, I mean, I'm.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, or even if it's, look, this is the grade that we're gonna use as opposed to the bottom grade or the top grade, you would see this grade, shingles or, you know, and maybe there's a color palette, maybe there's not,
Well, we can put that together and we can put that together in the bill.
Okay.
They are attached condos,
Mhm.
but they're not all gonna be the exact color. We're gonna use the craftsman style details. You know, I had put a summary with the original architectural renderings on, you know, the
Yep.
theme, kind of a nautical theme, you know,
Mhm.
by the lake. But I can get you material samples. Like I said, I'm just trying to get an understanding of
Yep.
what I can provide you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do think we had, yeah, look right away, sorry, storm drainage, you brought that up. In relation to existing and other property. Sorry, I'm reading the development plan review again. All right. You keep going, okay. Otherwise, we'll dive into some specifics.
Can I address one
Yeah,
other thing
absolutely.
on the site plan?
Yep.
You know, Mr. Cleveland said that, you know, we couldn't figure it out. We did a lot of due diligence and looked at a lot of different versions and layouts of this plan over the past year and a half. I submitted to the mayor and the administration a drawing where we did have units facing the main road. We couldn't do curb cuts all along Lakeshore and Slida. It wasn't realistic. To say that we didn't make an effort isn't accurate. We looked at it. I submitted to the mayor. We couldn't have a bunch of curb cuts on Lakeshore and Slida. And, you know, I understand, I mean. So we couldn't have all this curb cuts there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're
Yeah,
gonna have
no,
careers, I
absolutely
mean,
agree, and I think, you know, when we talked about it before, I'm sorry, so. You're welcome to step out of the meeting.
and then, you know, with that too, I just wanted to make it. Clear that we did make an effort. We looked at a lot of different versions of this. We, you know, for our development of this size, I mean, we're gonna invest a lot into that landscaping to soften that, so it's not just, you know, sitting there watching somebody cooking out. I mean, we're gonna mound all that and heavily plant it. So when you drive through there, I mean, it's boats in a junkyard now, it's gonna be, you know, close to $300,000 condos with very extensive heavily landscaped and irrigated beds all the way through there.
And
With
that's where I
heavy
think
plantings
the
and a really pretty sign, in the corner. And to be frank, I mean, we're not gonna make everybody happy. And we've been doing this for 2 years. And like I said, we wanna invest $9 million in that corner.
Yes.
So,
So I do think an architectural rendering could go a long way to have people feel like, okay, we're not just gonna see, you know, the
Yeah.
gliders, the people with their.
yeah, I mean, I even tried to get them to show that street view, like if you were standing across from the park, it's hard to have, you know. A conceptual rendering versus if you're standing there when, you know, that was all cleaned up and there were brand new houses there. And, you know, landscaping that was well maintained on that corner. I think the sign location will look really nice on the corner there.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, my
I-
concern is that what we're looking at right now, for me personally, looks exactly like what I have across the street here. And those are no way, you know, in the same ballpark as what you're talking about. So that's where I do think that architectural rendering that can give a little bit better, you know, pull in that nautical flair, pull in the kind of site, will kind of go a long way to kind of helping that. Helping that imagery, I think, in people's heads, and you're essentially, I think, gonna end up with like 2 front doors, right? I mean, kind of. You have a deck, you can call them porch, whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, yeah, that side.
But and that's fine, I mean, but, we're making an effort, we wanna make it nice too.
Absolutely.
We're not, we're getting accused that we're building this horrible monotonous development and not investing, and that's just not what we're doing. So, I'll work with you guys on that, but even that price, that price point's a good effort. That will be good. Regardless of whether we can make everybody happy or not, I mean, we're gonna build expensive houses there. That I think are gonna be good for surrounding values. And I think it's gonna look good when it's done and done. And like I said, even the landscaping, we're investing a ton along both of those corridors. So it does look good. And we want it to be enjoyable for the new residents too. I mean, people don't wanna look right into a unit, so I mean, you can mound and landscape it and still be on the street and have privacy and, some balance and separation. It's achievable. So, and we're gonna do evergreen, so it's not, just completely bare when the leaves fall right around the corner, so.
Yeah. And we did take a look at that, the landscape, and I think the landscape plan was good. It would be good to see the rest of the architectural picture.
Do you want some more renderings of the landscape corridor views too, or?
I don't think that hurts, but I personally, I mean, that should all be part of the package, but it is that idea of saying, can I have that mental image, even if what we do is we have a version that says, this is the version without anything there, right? Like restricted, so by the way, that's not, it's gonna be planted, and then the version with the landscape, because the version that we have does show the landscape, and again, it's the version with just the placement, drawings, whatever, rendering, right? Yeah. Now, the color picture of the corner, that had
The color rendering.
yeah, this was how the planting will look when it goes in, and then roll up from here.
You can see the monument sign for the development.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
thought
that's
that
the one
placement
had
on the
there.
corner would look good.
Well, and it actually allows it to, have a slight. On the corner, should have the south side. So right over there, yeah.
You're gonna get it.
Any questions? Yeah, we can get into each. Guide forward or on the other.
One more.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
you went from 37 townhouses down to 30 now, correct? That is the latest version.
I believe, because we went through like 15 or 16 iterations of this in the past 2 years. I believe that was it. I could pull them, but we had different, I mean, if you remember, and at one point we were looking at apartments and then.
Yeah, I remember subdivision apartments.
And then, the mayor had me look at the front loaded versions with all the curb cuts and.
And that's why I think it's particularly critical that you settle on when we submit this package for this group, it is the latest greatest package, right? Because you're right, there's so many versions of this that have been floating,
Mhm.
that I think we have to be able to say, I mean, for me, in good faith, if I'm gonna recommend to the council, I wanna recommend a package and say, this is it. You don't have to refer back to the planning and zoning of May to take a look, like, this is the package. So that nobody's, pulling up the one they had in their file and it's the wrong one. So for me, that's one of the critical pieces to say, okay, we're gonna tick those off. Here's your landscape that was approved, the site plan as it was approved. If there is an adjustment, we went from 37 to 30, then that needs to be reflected appropriately. That's critical, right?
I think the new version is there.
Yeah, the new version's 30, I'd have to look back.
So that's not this.
Yeah, it should be.
No, you guys, the one in your possession and everything that was
Got it.
submitted is,
Okay, this is the third.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just, I think you're referring to early on when we had.
well, like,
Before that, we had 37.
yeah, I go all the way back to, January 22.
Yeah, I know it's been a while.
But that's where I think also, one package in front of us where you don't refer to your prior file, right? That would help.
Cause we have this, the data summary on the preliminary plan too, like the open space we brought up, we're at.
Yeah.
On a 2.5 acre site, I mean, we're 42.4%, so. you know, our coverage is still pretty low for a site that's. I mean, we're at 40%,
So I'm gonna
42.4.
I'm gonna try to summarize for a minute where we're at before we keep moving. So I think that where we're at, some of the things we did ask for were the preliminary floor plan, the architectural sketches, the floor plans done with the square footage. The property location, survey, we have the survey itself.
Well, on the preliminary plan, the one that the top right says preliminary development plan for Creighton's Landing.
Yep.
I mean, that's the location map. And then it shows like the surrounding properties, as you can see, and you can see the contour lines on it.
Yep.
I mean, this is an abbreviated view on a preliminary plan. I mean, when we get to a full set of engineered drawings with all the utilities and everything, I mean, we would submit full sets of engineered plans. But the preliminary is just like a cut section of the development and this, you know, the surrounding properties, as you can see. And then back on the architectural, so we submitted the color. The concept color elevations, and there was like a rear, a side, a front. You would like material samples, you said?
That's this. Sorry, I know this was black.
Yeah, so we submitted, that's the one that we submitted, but in terms of what you'd like to see, you said like color palettes, building material samples. And then you know, do you want us,
Honestly, this one is gonna cut it. Where, but and this looks very different than even the landscape record, right?
I mean, it looks like it's sitting in the middle of the field.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's hard to tell you know, I'm gonna stick out a little, in, it's hard to see the variation.
I'd like to take the rear section that you just showed and see if they can incorporate it into the landscape plan, so you could see what it would actually
would
look like driving by and get more detail on the drawing.
Okay.
Cause I mean,
That makes sense.
we're not even showing patios or any,
No.
it's
no.
just,
It's just
I
kind of the size of the building more than anything. It looks like, right?
Yeah.
but I think it'd be helpful for them to import that drawing into the landscape plan. To get a, you know, an accurate interpretation of what it would look like. So I'm gonna do
Yeah,
that.
and you know, my sense even as we go through, right, is the more we can get right and now, then the next version through, we're gonna cut and paste it and say, okay, we agree to that, we're gonna move forward. Unless there were some specific tweaks made there. Okay, so the development agreement, let's go ahead and go to that right now. Again, this would be our recommendation to council. We've incorporated most of what Mr. Lyon had suggested. The one piece I would bring up that I didn't hear was the wait a minute, I get it here. It's the development terms and conditions, it's actually on page 5 of ours, it's 8. I think that was the landscape plan. And it looks for developer performance bonds. I'll make sure this is just for landscape.
No, it would be us as the developer, even if it was for,
Yeah.
so for typically for any unfinished improvements, there would be, you know, a bond posted for.
Yeah, so to me, in a $9 million development. Certainly, we know that, I personally, $50,000, but I don't think from this group, I think Mr. Lyons suggested $1.5.
I would agree with 50,000.
Somebody else has another thought, or not agree with that, more to go.
More the better.
I mean, we could just get an engineer's estimate for. Whatever the material is and base it upon what the actual cost would be.
let's put 50, but that might be, comes up higher than 50, and researchers do that, and that would be great.
Am I allowed to comment on
Yeah,
8B?
8B,
Yeah, as you know, we've been discussing the fact that, the tax abatements are,
so let me just, for those of you who may not know, 8B is the CRA tax.
we're concerned, we need additional funding, so, this 15-year, 100% is going to be changed. And we're not exactly sure whether we'll do away with it completely or probably up to 5 years, up to 50%. That's probably, and we will be putting conditions. Okay. Just so you understand where we're going. It won't be 100%.
So that's what the council is currently considering, the up
Absolutely.
to 5 years, up to
50% for single family residents. Right,
Yes.
it wouldn't go to the developer, it would go to the owner.
Okay, and then at this point, the language that is going to be put in here is the language as that Mr. Lyon suggested, which is depending on the language that is in effect at the time.
Correct, at the time. Right. We're definitely, unfortunately, gonna have to take some time.
We just, what I discussed with Jim is, I mean, I understand that may change, it's just, we have an active application now. And we're, you know, getting this approved, and you have the ordinance the way it reads now, we are just asking for, you know, what the rules are and what applies now. And so it wasn't just fluid, I mean, that's
Mhm.
typically how it's done, and I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. We have to follow the ordinances, you know, on our end. And we were just asking that, you know, whatever is in process now would apply to us. I understand that you guys, for various reasons, may change that, but I think, you know, I think it's proper. Just like we have to follow all the ordinances for the development plan, all the rules that are in place now. It's not like, you know, we go through this and say it might change next month. I mean, what's in place now, I think is fair to apply. Because that's that's how the ordinance is written now. And again, I understand you guys might change it in the future, just. It's kind of tough to say, you know, this rule might apply at some point in the future. So we came back to Jim and said, you know, we would like it to apply as it's written now. Because we're going through this now.
And I think what you hear us saying is, and I'll ask this through. But I'm hearing agreement with as using, certainly understanding your perspective, but instead agreeing with the recommendation of our law director, which would be where it is upon completion. Now, I will also say, I hope this legislative fire under council make whatever decision you're gonna make and put it in place. Because this isn't
We're almost
fair,
done with it.
isn't fair to any builder or developer
Right.
to not have that come to you.
Well, you know, there was a comment made before, I mean, that has nothing to do with the amount of money a developer makes, I mean, CRA is for. It helps people that wanna buy a house.
Yeah,
Make it-
yes, but it
make
doesn't
it-
have to do with project viability.
Yeah, oh, for sure,
That's my-
more so than ever too, with where construction costs and ridiculous interest rates are, so. It's a big part of. It's a big part of any successful project, regardless of what city or what type of construction it is. Cause that, you know, it affects affordability, viability, and it's more volatile than it probably has been in a long time right now.
But I believe the wording states up to. 15 years and up to 100%.
Well, and that's why, I think, yeah, but I think the piece of what we're saying is what would we recommend, right?
Well, can I,
So,
yeah,
the Summers Group has come forward with their best proposal for us to review. I think if we as a group are saying, we would prefer to say something different, and that's what we're gonna put forward to the council, then I think that's up to us as a recommendation.
or agree to, you know, what would apply to this project. We just can't have it, you know, floating. You know, what if you're one of the first people to buy, you know, pay $300,000 for a condo? Your neighbor gets, you know, tax exempt at this rate, and the neighbor across the street gets at another rate, it's not fair. And I wanted to ask the mayor, I didn't get a chance to talk to Mr. Lyons, but I know the mayor talked to him. I'd like to hear what Jim had to say, because we had a follow-up discussion about
Yeah, we
this.
did, and it's along the lines of this whole discussion. What Mr. Summers is gonna put together will be in phases, and to his point. The CRA, the tax abatement, should be consistent from if I bought the first unit in phase one. The same as the 30th unit in phase 6, and that's only fair to them as developers, but also fair to the residents they're going in, saying. You know, hey, I bought unit 1, I got 15 years. Well, of course, unit 30 is gonna say, I want the same thing. So to Jim's point, totally agree with what we talked about. Whatever offered to phase 1, unit 1, should be offered to unit 30 also.
But I think the piece that I would put is that whatever is in effect at the time of phase 1 completion would be what was considered.
I mean, are you guys planning on doing away with it completely?
That's been a discussion. But probably not.
Or, along the lines of upon whatever it is when the first unit transfers? I wouldn't even say it in phases. Whenever you built your first home and it transferred. We
I could go with that, but yeah, because. Yeah, you need something if you're gonna be marketing. To a potential new citizen of our city, they're gonna wanna know that.
yeah, I know that's gonna affect, qualifying for your payment, or your monthly payment's gonna be in taxes. I mean, this might deem a follow-up conversation with Mr. Lyons and whoever else is the appropriate party. We would like to know, what's gonna apply. Cause I mean, even if we work through this process, everybody knows this isn't a quick process. We kind of need to know where that stands now and not, at some date in the future. I think that's a fair request.
I think that's fair as well. I think for these purposes, we come down to what's in effect on first unit transfer, but you're probably gonna need some more, and hopefully again, you've heard. From the chair, from others, that I hope the council makes a decision on the case. Okay, so then we also talked about the developer, the names of the proposed builder. Within the final approval of the development plan, or the development final agreement. Did we talk about that?
So what
I think you were, I didn't notice that you would agree with that.
So I talked to the mayor and Mr. Lyons about this. We're still working through the process. We're not gonna finalize an agreement with there's several builders that would love to build, these reputable builders that would love to build here in Meadow on the Lake. That are interested in the project, but we can't finalize an agreement with them and before this is even approved. It's not. So what I propose is that, we work through the approval, and then before we execute the final development plan with the city. We would dispose the builder before that agreement was signed and before we started construction.
I think that's what we say, is
Mhm.
that not?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that's how, I was just clarifying how we got there.
Okay. So that was, you're in the development, I'm in the development agreement, I'm in development terms and conditions. I. And then in a service. It does, and yes, here's Mr. Lyons, he put it in, and then we got agreement that it would go back in prior to the final.
So I is going back.
Correct.
Which is great.
Correct. All right. Anybody else have anything right now on the
So I have one more question, I guess, with back on the tax abatement, I mean,
Yep.
with that, I guess, should we follow back up with the law director or, council president or the mayor? Because like I said, we would just ask that, it's defined in the development agreement, so we know what it's gonna be. Cause it's just,
problem, it's almost done right now.
Well, that's fine, so that's not the answer.
just have to read over
The truth is, it's not the law director who makes the decision or the recommendation. First, it would be this board. Then it would go to council. Now, council could, if we said tonight, we're okay with the preliminary version. It could change between what council decides to consider and adopt, right? So right now, we look at the recommendation, and the recommendations of Mr. Lyons are essentially for our consideration here. And good to know, right? So if we have to hand off. From here, we don't approve or disapprove, we recommend, right? So we approve or disapprove the development plan itself. And then there's development, or the initial development plan, preliminary development plan, and the preliminary agreement we recommend. So one we can approve, one we can recommend. The plan has to contain this before it's considered, the preliminary plan has to be in here. So that's why we started with the conversation about preliminary development.
which, when you said the preliminary
We have a
site plan,
We don't have the development. The development plan is the one that needs to at least kind of go a bit further. We had a few specific questions that we wanted to be sure we had a little bit more information on, including the thoughts on the floor plans, a little bit more on the architectural, the sewer, specifically with runoff. Are there any other questions? And we did talk about ingress and egress and all that is already part of the site. Other questions?
No, but we need all of that.
Yes,
We feel like we can.
move forward. Well, the sketches and renderings, right, that's for the preliminary, then there's. But hopefully, hopefully once you get through the preliminary, wherever we're at, it's pretty close. All right, anybody have any other questions? On any other document? I'm gonna, declaration of covenants restricting the units. The one question I had was still that I wasn't getting. And Mr. Lyons did bring it up, was the exhibit C, which is the chart of maintenance and insurance responsibility. I find it in a development where there is an association. I too was a bit confused by the idea that exterior replacement or driveway and walk is the owner's responsibility, not the association. Now, I will admit, I don't. But that to me kind of surprised. I just didn't know how to deal with that. My sense would have been that would have been an association responsibility.
They were plowing the driveway.
No, not plowing, I'm talking about unit maintenance.
I know, they usually plow the driveway.
Well, that's in another section. I'd like to keep it to the question and answer. Yes, they do plow the driveway.
it's just typically a more consistent way to do it, because I mean, in HOA. If it's your own unit and you're responsible for it, you have to take care of it, just like a single family house. The examples I've heard, I mean, you could have an association and, if somebody's not paying their fee. Or, they're having a hard time collecting fees. That could become problematic. If you own your house and you have to take care of it, it's defined what you have to take care of, just like a single family house. When we went through this with Jim and when we talked to our legal team, that's a better way to do it. To define who owns what and who's responsible for what, just as if you owned a house. versus, you know, gray area with an association and,
But when I own the house, the owner and the association are one, so it kind of doesn't matter. The difference I guess I have here is. Or suppose I have, sorry, talking to out of my head. You know, you do have the plat. This is a planned unit development, it is not a. Condo, right? What do you say?
well, I mean, it's what you'd consider a hybrid. I mean, that ties
Yeah.
into common element ownership and, you know, because there's still gonna be an HOA, there's gonna be an HOA fee, it's gonna be professionally managed. But when it comes to your actual unit, you know, you own your house, you own the ground under it, you own the foundation. And, you know, you're responsible for that, but there still is gonna be an association fee and an HOA that deals with maintenance and management and landscaping. So it's differentiated, you know, with the actual, you know, like what you're responsible for with your actual unit that you own. And Jim just wanted to define as to exactly what that consists of, so there's no future disputes.
I guess that it ends up making the design requirements that much more important then, because I'm envisioning 10 years down the road. And I suddenly decide, you know, I don't like the vinyl siding, I'm gonna put up purple stone, I don't give you the stone. But it's gonna then move us away from the design. Now, I do know, right, you put back in that the city would have the ability, the association can change the design guidelines or amend or update somehow.
Only with
But
city
the
approval.
city, only with city approval.
That was an important part of it.
But yeah, it
'Cause
again,
you guys
it
maintain
makes those
control.
design guidelines that much more critical, I guess, to be able to say that if I, as the individual unit owner, have to do exterior and replacement maintenance. Right? There needs to be some minimum standards in there on what that means. Whether it's color or frankly, you know, am I gonna downgrade the windows? Get cracked windows, I'm gonna put it on. I mean, at that point, you're valuing the property based on one person's judgment. Granted, one hopes if you're investing several $100,000 into your property, you're gonna profit. That you would keep it up, but you know, that and then the other is the driveway and walk replacement. So I don't even know, you know, if the sidewalk is, something happened to it and it's now out of whack and I have to, it's up to me. Who makes that decision? Because I may say, I don't want to spend it $5,000 to replace the 5 blocks of, I don't know how much.
I mean,
You
that's,
know what I mean?
I
I
get-
mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
no, that would be a legal question too, I guess, for you guys, the city and the law director and how, you know, like if you own a house and the walk's bad, you know, can the
Again,
inspector,
public. Right, so this is now, I'm thinking the internal,
there's still gonna be platted lots though that are owned in fee. Just, so, cause you have private streets, that's why it's kind of a hybrid here. You still have a platted lot and you own it just like a house. But you have private streets, so you still are, it's still like truly a single family house in terms of the legal structure, and I got clarification when Jim and I worked through this. And he made the comments on the plat, you still truly own it. Just like, you know, a platted lot, if you were owned a home. We do have some common area and private streets,
common Perkins,
but not, but that,
common streets, and that would be the association.
and if there's any, you know, clarification on this, it might be. You know, needing to go back to Jim, because honestly, the attorneys worked on a lot of this back and forth. With Jim commenting and,
Yeah, and I think the hard part of it is we really didn't, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm working off of an old version at this point, that's what has me a little concerned. And I don't know why that is, you know, I mean, I'm looking at a markup version, which I'm okay with, but it's different than what I'm hearing you put forward. So. Again, I just don't feel like I'm looking at, am I really sure I'm gonna have a version control here? If I'm looking at a version that maybe dated yesterday or.
I think we need I think we need a non-red line version
Yeah.
with all this
I
incorporated
think
into
we
it.
do.
Cause
I'm with you,
I just got the comments from Jim the other day,
yeah,
and then there was a few things that we needed to discuss. And by the time we got close to the meeting, you know, if you're looking at a marked up red line with
right,
changes.
and we saw these on, this came to us on Friday.
I think with everything that we discussed tonight, we need to go back and get a non-red line version.
Non-red version, I
that's
think that
clean.
will clean it up. I think we have a few more questions to make, like this one, maybe we to make sure, because, you know, we're looking at his notes, and I wanna kind of have him revise this based on the additional conversation that happened. Anybody else have any additional?
I do,
Okay.
on page 22, I'm looking at,
Line two of the declaration of public conditions.
9.1 to 9.1.21, renting and leasing. It says the intent of the declaration is provide an owner occupied community except as provided in the section, no water long unit may be leased or rented or held solely for investment purposes. Then it turns around and says that the board can empower and change that. It's supposed to be owner occupied, not rented.
So where is the conflict if
It
permitted?
says the
Oh,
board is empowered to allow reasonable leasing of the lot or the lot.
What's the rule in the city of Mentor-on-the-Lake if you wanted to rent your house tomorrow? I mean, can you rent your house in Mentor-on-the-Lake if you want? Cause as you guys know, we said it all along, I mean, we're selling these, it's not gonna be a rental community. But, you know, if I bought a house here tomorrow, or you did, and you wanted to lease it to somebody,
Who's gonna stop you?
but we are selling, these are for sale. These aren't apartments, we're not renting them, but I don't know that we can. And this is a Jim question too, but
Yeah,
I don't know that we can, you know, sell somebody a house or a condo anywhere and say, you're not allowed to rent this. I don't, that's more of a legal question, but as you guys know, we're selling these aren't apartments or rentals. But what people do after the fact, I don't know, that may be beyond us and the legal question, so.
I just wanted to.
And you know, with the board. I mean,
I don't know what kind of restriction of trade we have on. When you own it,
cause even,
now I do appreciate the idea of at least a minimum of a 1 year lease. So we're not looking at somebody buy a bunch of units.
cause even if you added in there where, you know, the condo board could allow it. But then, you know, tried to say with city approval, I don't even know if we can do that. So,
They need to register. If they're gonna rent it, they have to register.
Do we register?
Yes.
again, I mean, you guys know that it's always been. Once we got onto this plan that we never had any intention of doing this as a rental or apartment community. But I don't know what our capabilities are, it might be more of a legal question.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Comments, concerns?
I don't think we can, if they sell it, we can't tell the owner whether they can rent it or not. I'm sure I got that from like,
Well, they do have a set of restrictions. in
Whether I
there
like
that
that or
think,
not.
yeah,
No, I hear, I'm just telling you guys though on the record, we're not renting them.
They do have a set of restrictions that does require a minimum lease and they have to supply the name of the tenant or tenants.
they have to, yeah. They want to inspect it and they also want if there's something happens, we want to know who they can call, the fire department.
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, if somebody, if I'm buying a $300,000 condo and I'm gonna rent it to somebody, I'm gonna make sure it's. You know, substantial investment to let somebody go in there and jeopardize it, so. Hopefully if it happens, it would be a situation where somebody had a tenant that they vetted and. Got a big security deposit and did it the right way, so.
And in here, it states the board of directors. I'm guessing that's the HOA board. That.
So they'll,
Homeowners Association.
they'll elect the president and the vice president, treasurer, and,
Right.
you know. They have voting powers and. Manage all aspects of the HOA.
Right.
Yeah, it does define board as board of directors.
Yeah. And as you see in there, there's those claims.
So I think we have a few. Well, what action? Where are we? I think we've gone through the. So my sense is. Maybe a driver actions. I think we need to table this to find a clean version of the development agreement. I think we had a few additional questions, which included, more information on the runoff, a bit more on the architectural, intent, maybe some additional views based on what we've done prior. Getting myself so hopefully, are wonderful. We're just letting it all down. It's not, I don't being recorded. So.
Well, and I'm gonna talk to our architectural team too on the best way to accomplish that.
Yeah,
Cause
we need to get a sense.
Cause we're not, you know, again, if the buildings aren't, they're not all gonna be the exact same color. They're gonna have some different variation to mix them up, and I just need to talk to them about this, at this point, how to best accomplish that.
Yeah,
you're
and-
basically
and
would
I
be-
feel like you have a vision that would
Mhm.
just, it'd be nice to.
Cause you know, we don't have a builder yet, and we'd be doing like selections for units.
Right.
But we don't even know who's gonna build them yet, so we're trying to establish those standards. And get as far as we can at this point, and it's just, I'm trying to wrap my head around the best way to accomplish that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, cause remember, I'm not building them,
Right.
we're gonna
You're gonna have.
partner with a reputable builder to build them, but we just, it's a little bit of a challenge, so we're just gonna have to pull together. The best information we can, where we can get comfortable.
Well, and again, if nothing else, what helps to know your minimums, right? Because even if you're gonna go out to bid, you're gonna go to a builder and say, here's your minimums.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah, when we make a
And who
deal,
knows, maybe somebody comes in and says, no, you can, for half the amount, do twice as good. Great, do it. You know, so maybe there's just a minimum set of standards.
well, I want you guys to know too, because you know, we're the architects, I mean, they're doing cost takeoffs on these. And we want to push the envelope.
Yeah,
It's just, we're, you know, at 285 entry level, I mean. They're
this
not,
area, yeah.
well, it's just, there's a limit, so
Mhm.
we're trying to toe that line, I mean, we want it to be as nice as possible. But even as is, and again, that's on the record, I mean, our entry sale there, it's gonna be, you know, in the mid up high 280s already. So, we're gonna push as much as we can, but
Yeah, I
we-
appreciate that.
there's, you know, we also have to pay attention to what is realistic in the market too.
So I think that what we're looking at a minimum is a non-red line version, and hopefully, again, we can get that. And comments, and if there's any additional comments from Mr. Wallet, you can get those within the review. You know, hopefully getting our template prior to our next meeting.
So the non-red line version,
The
some
non-red
more
line-
information on stormwater, and so
Correct.
I'm just going through my notes to make sure I have everything.
You make a better notes.
So,
Square footage.
yeah,
of
I got the,
houses.
I'm just gonna get you guys actual floor plans,
That would be
Yeah.
better.
copies of the floor plans, we're striking spas and hot tubs.
Well, thanks.
I think that's a good idea, because even if somebody fence it in, you don't wanna be dealing with it down the line.
Correct.
And it's gonna be mounded, but I agree with that. They can be unsightly, to say it lightly.
They can be. And if you're gonna put it on the left side, it's too cold. Whatever.
So, yeah, and then I think I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna see if I can get some more detailed renderings. I'm gonna incorporate it into that landscape rendering.
Okay,
Cause I think that would be helpful to actually, that one rendering, it looks like it's just sitting in a field. That's the problem.
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no
and
depth
then
or
the
perspective.
one landscape is just the corner,
Mhm.
which does show the,
I'm thinking some additional views,
that would be good.
you know, and it's not even showing the patio, like, it's not giving,
No.
it's making it look.
Like, pretty bare.
um,
Either. So I do think that's it, and you know, if you can go through the recording, then if there's anything else we've missed, we'll get that list back to Mr. Summers. And whoever else needs to see it, maybe just go on it, I think they're really doing. The what thing, that would be a good one. Confirm these, okay, right. And then, yeah, and then the other question is on the rental, I'm not sure we can. Beyond the first round, I'm not sure what we can do there, it would be interesting to hear with the precedent. I think the other change that we made with the bond of 50,000.
And what section,
That one
for the performance bond, what,
That was in 9, as in dog. Yeah, and it's in Mr. Warning. No, it's a real.
I just wanna make sure,
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe the,
is that just, that's just,
it's in the C, it's right under the CRA tax rate.
and that's just for any unfinished improvements.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk to Jim about that.
Okay.
You typically, if there's anything unfinished, you know, we'll actually get a hard engineer's estimate to get actual figures on what it would cost, and then base the bond on that amount. So I'll talk to him about that, but usually if the, plus we've been, you know, we plan on, you know, we're not developing it in phases. We're putting in the whole development and the landscaping. It's just the units are gonna be built. You know, they're not gonna be built all 30 at one time, but we're doing all the improvements at once on the
Oh,
development
I
side.
see what you're saying.
So we're not gonna come in and put, you know, one stub of street in. We're gonna come in, do all the dirt work, all the utility work. You know, we wanna
So
put
all
in,
the infrastructure.
yeah, the entry monument signage. You know, get us, do everything on the development side, and then when they're building the units, they'll come and just build the units.
Okay,
And they'll be, you know, obviously weather permitting, I mean, they'll be landscaped immediately. We're not doing any of the development stuff piecemeal, we're doing it all at once. I mean, if we are building over the winter, obviously we're not installing landscaping, but.
Yeah.
We plan on doing all of our work at one time. No phasing on the development side is my point.
Don't you have 2 years in which one? Or
start with that.
start from finish or not? I don't know, I thought we had talked about.
We all, you know, that brings up a good point, that's one of the things that we had talked about with
Right.
CRA.
Right.
Cause it was, Jim didn't want an indefinite timeline, so he said, you know, if we do agree to a rate and that it applies, that, you know, we would be built out in 2 years from the transfer of the first unit.
Right.
So it wasn't just hanging out there.
Yeah, I'd like to incorporate that in the 2 years after the first year.
Cause I mean, it sounds like we need to get some clarification on this CRA.
Right.
Cause if the rates defined, the timelines defined, we would just like to have that in the agreement, so we know.
No,
what's-
and that, maybe that, again, we can do it, it's a sense of the group, maybe this, another few weeks, the council to make some decision. Move forward.
We're working right now.
Excellent. Now we do the watch it. Okay, anything else here? If not, Fred, thank you. I don't think we have any other questions.
Have you already, done the environmental study? Yeah,
I mean, the first thing we did, I mean, that was an old gas station.
right.
We put in
Right.
watering monitoring wells for groundwater testing, did a phase one with RP Environmental like day one.
Did
Because
you
we needed-
include the results of that then, the environmental assessment?
Mhm.
in Our package for next time?
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's important. We also did what's called a GPR surveys, ground penetrating radar, because, you know, to make sure there weren't big tanks there or anything like that, which there weren't. So, and the water was clean.
Good.
So, yeah, I mean, we did that day one. It used to be an old service station I was told, way back in the day.
And I think we've already covered the hookups with sewer, storm sewers and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I talked to the service department about that. Because a couple of the inlets were, people had dumped long ways on them forever, so we had to locate them and people just dump grass clippings on them, so we wanted to verify where the inlet basins were, and we cleared them out and, you know, been mowing it.
Right.
And I will say, you know, when we get a little further along, I mean, our intention is to get rid of all that and clean slate that site. I mean, you know, we don't own it yet, but, you know, as soon as we get to a certain point in this process, those boats and the garbage in the building are gone. Like immediately. We want to just have a clean site and clean slate there. That's our plan. So, and that was brought up, you know, from somebody in the public. I mean,
Sure.
you know, we're not getting involved to let boats and garbage sit there. We want to at least get it cleaned up, even if it takes a little time to commence construction and, you know, get to that point.
That was not.
And just so you know, we have works to try to get owners to those boats. Through the police department, whoever we could, to try to find the owners. And
Yeah, there's a process.
Yeah,
there's a whole process.
I have learned that being here, getting that, I know that we talked to Cal, I know years about, you know, difficulties. I did not realize how hard it was. So we don't have to.
Right.
Not to be redundant on the CR issue, I mean, so how do you guys recommend, I mean, Mr. Shaboo, Mayor, the board, I mean, how do we continue that dialogue? I mean, like I said, we know what's in place now. You know, do we need to set up a meeting with,
When is the next?
I just-
meeting?
Next council meeting is tomorrow night. We won't discuss it then. We will have another zoning meeting. We'll set it up tomorrow. We already have a preliminary what we wanted. And it needs to be gone over. And then
So
once
it's
that's
either reviewed by the
completed,
council, is that the next step? Whatever
well,
you're.
the zoning and then, yeah, then we have to set a bank account.
so you're amending it?
Yes,
So you're not getting rid of it, you're amending it.
yes. That's where we are at the moment.
I would recommend you go to the zoning meeting, if the mayor could let you know when it's gonna be set up,
Right.
you should go to that.
No, I mean, hope, you know, it's a valuable tool, especially in today's climate. I
Right.
think it's
Which you would
it's
do.
misunderstood by people. I mean, people made the comment that it's developers trying to be greedy. It's not. I mean, it's payments are crazy on a house right now. I mean, I mean, that's why you guys have it set up for people wanting, if you remodel your house, you can even get some tax abatement. Because you want people to reinvest in their home and at least get some benefit on the tax side. The whole, you know, it's a useful tool in that manner.
It is, but, you know, and you can appreciate that, our perspective here really is ultimately, if we're looking at part of this as an economic development tool. And signing away, you know, it does have.
Nothing is done. Against you, it's overall. we're looking.
Oh, no, I understand. I was saying that.
We're looking overall, money. We've had this CRA for 6 or 7 years. We see what it has done and it needs to be adjusted.
So we're looking for, the zoning.
Right.
The ZA,
Zoning committee, the zoning committee. And then once we finally agree to what we have right here, it'll go to town.
Judiciously is better, faster is better.
Faster the better. And nothing would make me happier. And once once if council agrees to this adjustment, it'll go into effect immediately.
Okay, great. So hopefully
That's the way we have it set it up.
we're moving forward. Yeah, okay, so that's helpful. Well, thank you, and thank you, Greg, for joining us this evening. Mr. Mayor, you have a report for us.
The only thing I will mention is, our charter review commission. We have 3 individuals that have
We have one more today.
4 today. So we have 4 out of 9. If anyone else is interested, please send a letter to our council clerk. And what we'll do is turn those names over to council. They'll approve it. And more than likely, the commission will start up sometime in January.
Great, thank you.
That's it.
Council report?
Sure, we're working on several ordinances, 3 to be exact, 3 that I'm gonna mention tonight, the tree lawn. We're trying to decide what kinds of trees. Rental inspection, it needs to be updated. And hopefully that'll be done shortly, and we're also working on the CRA.
Hopefully be done soon.
Certainly. So I have here, but we just need to go over it.
All right, we did have an item of new business, certainly it's our first time, we did not have the comment done, but would you like to take a few minutes on our other topic? I'm gonna start the clock again.
Probably don't need 5, but 5 of these. Bill Cleveland, 7607 Lyden Road. This is about our part on the west end of Salida. There's a significant issue there with erosion and loss of the beach, loss of access to the beach. This has been brought up and discussed many times at council meeting and privately with various members and so on. And I have mentioned to the mayor and the city manager and brought it up at city council that we have easy access to the preeminent lakeshore developed builder, erosion control expert, which is Mike Huffman. I think everybody knows about Mike at least. I've been dealing with him and his father for about 30 years. And they've done much of the work along lakeshore here. We decided to bring in some experts to talk to us about developing a vision for the city, a plan for the city and so on. And we have brought in a couple people to give us ideas and some idea of the cost for their participation. What I've suggested to various people who are running the city is, why don't we ask Mike Huffman to come in and talk to us about what would actually be involved in what we think we want to do, then there'll be that much access to the beach, whatever. And that's free. And this is the guy who has more experience doing that in the area than anybody else around. And there is no obligation. We're not asking him for a quote. We're just asking him to come in and talk to us. And I bring that up particularly because it's been mentioned numerous times that CT Engineering has mentioned something like $1.2 million. And everybody freaks out. Oh my God, $1.2 million. We don't, as the mayor said, we're broke. We have no money. We're always broke. Well, the number 1.2 really is kind of scary, you're saying. And based on recent experience with, say, Tess and Susan and myself, Mike did work for me last fall. That's extremely exorbitantly high. And I think unduly frightens people about the actual cost of doing what we need to do. So short of getting a quote, why wouldn't we bring in an expert, somebody actually capable of doing work and the engineering? We don't need CT, we don't need anybody. These guys work directly with the Corps of Engineers. They have engineers. Many of the residents here have experience with them. And I'm just wondering why we're not getting any response from the city government in one form or another to ask, be it Mike Huckman or Chris Haynes, the two most common developers in our community, to come in and talk to us. I think it would be interesting to get real numbers from people who actually know what they're talking about. And that is my suggestion, that we consider inviting these people in. I don't have to be involved, but I would be willing to be involved just to contact either Chris or Mike Houtman to say, here's kind of our situation a little bit. I don't represent the city particularly, I have no authority. But could you consider coming in and talk to us about what we might do with this situation? Thank you.
Thank you. So we will take that as beyond the scope of this group. Interesting thought, definitely. True. You could raise that back up through council as well, as a suggestion. There we go. All right, and with that, our next meeting is planned on the 2nd of October. We will have a continuing discussion at that point. There is no other new business. I will take a motion to adjourn. And a second? Second. Okay, we will do this by acclamation. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Steve. We have good project. Thank you.
Don't say it too much, feeling that way.
That's the difference.
We know. I didn't ask about everything, that's about you.
It is what it is.